Hello and welcome to Acoustic Review. My name's Ben Morgan Brown and today I'm looking at two Glen Campbell signature models from Ovation guitars. The non-cutaway slim body 1627 VL 4GC and the cutaway mid-depth 1771 VL 1GC. Common features to both guitars include solid AA grade Sitka spruce tops with Ovation scalloped X bracing, vintage brown Lyracord bowl back bodies, 5-piece mahogany and maple necks with a PAL ferro fingerboard, and scale length of 642mm and nut widths of 42.8mm. Both guitars are fitted with an OCP 1K pickup with a vintage SKM preamp with volume and tone controls. They ship with Ovation gig bags and have an RRP of £1,020. So let's have a listen to both guitars now and then come back afterwards for my thoughts. There's something satisfyingly retro about both of these guitars. The sound hole rosette, brown back and sides and headstock design bring to mind big sideburns and brown suede jackets. And to be honest, I kind of wanted to just pick up the natural model and play Rhinestone Cowboy, which I suppose is exactly what you'd want from a Glen Campbell model. Both guitars are quite heavy and they feel solidly built. There's obviously not a lot of fancy woodwork to admire, but the Sitka top on the natural model has some nice grain in it, and the multiply neck construction adds a welcome natural look to the rear of the guitars. The fretwork is really good on both guitars, and aside from a few small areas of filler in the fingerboard inlays, there's nothing to fault on the build quality side of things. Unsurprisingly, the shallower body of the 1627 has less low-end oomph than the deeper 1771, but I actually think the deeper bodied model lost a little bit of clarity because of that. Neither guitar is particularly loud when finger picked, and there is a bit of compression in the sound and a lack of headroom, but both guitars had really good sustain. There's an emphasis on mid-range and crispness. Listening back to the recordings, there was also a certain lo-fi-ness to the tone, which I think would sit well in a mix, and although not the most expansive acoustic tone I've ever heard, both guitars definitely had some charm about them. The plugged-in sound had good low end, but the top end was very plasticky sounding. Normally, I'm pretty critical of undersaddle pickups, and to be honest, I'm not sure I'd want to gig with this tone myself, but in Ovation's defence, this is typical of the plugged-in tone of the era these guitars are harking back to, so I'm not sure if criticism is warranted in this case. At least the pickup and preamp is easy to use, and if you like the slightly cutting piezo tone, well, you'd be well served by this pickup in a live situation. I've reviewed several Ovations now for Acoustic Review, and one thing that's always impressed me is the neck. Despite being quite narrow at the nut, I've found them all to be very playable and comfortable in the left hand, and these two guitars are no exception. The necks are full without being overly large, and the low action and good fretwork make them very enjoyable to play. I think these guitars are going to suit people looking for an instrument that plays well and has a unique look and sound. Yes, in some ways that look and sound is a bit dated and of a certain era, but Ovation certainly aren't the only guitar company harking back to the past and capitalising on nostalgia to sell guitars. It's just that these models are of a more recent vintage. At this price point, there are plenty of options in the market, including some very competitively priced traditionally built guitars. £1,000 for a guitar that is only partially made from wood might seem expensive, but Ovation is offering something relatively unique with their guitars, and so perhaps it's unfair to compare them to other brands. Either you get the Ovation sound and design ethos and therefore want to own one, or you don't. To say it's not all solid wood is it's kind of missing the point. I have to admit to personally being quite traditional in my guitar choices, but I've always enjoyed my time with the Ovation guitars I reviewed, and these two Glen Campbell models are no exception, particularly the slim-bodied model, which I really enjoyed playing. I like the slightly kitsch vibe, both guitars play really well, and they have a unique tone that, if it works for your music, you can't really get anywhere else. And to state the obvious, if they're good enough for Glen Campbell, well, they're certainly good enough for the likes of you and me. I hope you've enjoyed this video from Acoustic Review. Please subscribe to keep up to date with new videos, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.